Let's go! All right, guys, I'm Brian, one of the founders of Slick Products. We are here with Shelby Paget today. We are really excited to announce we finally got the delivery of the Stark Varg. Shipping was actually fairly quickly. It's just been a project of ours we really want to do. So as promised on some of our previous videos, we're gonna be doing an unboxing today and an assembly, and then we're gonna have more videos this year in 2025, releasing just updates on what we think of the bike, how it works. We're gonna be doing wash videos with it and just other testing. So Shelby is an avid rider of a Stark. I think he's one of the early adopters of it. Go ahead and tell us a little more.
I waited almost 2 years on the waiting list before mine shipped out, and now I've had about over a year on the bike with some seat time, and it's just such an exceptional bike and product. I'm really excited for you guys, and I've had the pleasure of putting a couple of these together, so there's some steps you want to be mindful of to make this as easy and smooth for you as well. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for being here, because it's gonna make the process way faster with Shelby. Like he said, he has done this a few times, so we're excited to hear his tips and tricks on how to put this thing together quickly and share those with you. So let's get into it. So first off, let's open her up. I'm gonna cut these ties, and then
we're gonna shimmy her. Now the boxing itself, it works, but it's a little flimsy, so be ready for a couple falling pieces.
Yeah, it was really nice getting it. The delivery truck dropped it off right here to our house, which was cool. However, moving it around the garage, you've got a lot of pieces that are kind of just stuck in here, so the box was really flimsy trying to slide it around.
And make sure you have a little bit of help. It's awfully heavy and a little awkward, so make sure you got helping hands, makes it a lot better.
All right, guys, so we got it unpackaged. If you're new or not familiar with the Stark, Shelby's he obviously knows way more about it than we do, so he's gonna just share a little bit about his opinion on the bike or anything he knows.
Yeah, so my background, I've ridden a little bit of everything over the years. I love just motocross and riding in general, so when originally the Stark was released, I was one of the first ones to sign up for a few different reasons. I really wanted to try out something new and progressive in our industry. We've had gas bikes, you know, from 2 strokes to 4 strokes, and now the progression to electric, and it's just a new way to experience a sport that I've been in love with since childhood. So when the Stark came out, I was excited to try it out, see what it was like to ride a bike with no rotational mass in the engine, without a piston and such, that static balance that people were talking about, as well as the instant torque and power. And one of the best parts too, now that I'm a dad of 2 little kids, is the very low maintenance portion. So I could spend more time riding and less time wrenching.
That's right. Well, I'm also a dad of 2 little boys, and I actually got a chance to ride Shelby's Stark the first time, and like the traction was like one of the biggest things I noticed in cornering and stuff. And for me too, like I'm in my 40s now, I don't want to spend a ton of time working on the bikes. I have very short windows to go out, have some fun, and get back. So I know there's a lot of hate on electric vehicles in general, especially with like the dirt bike world. But really at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get out and have fun. I'm not racing, I'm not ultra competitive. I just want to get out and have a good time. So it's really cool. And especially now, if I can ride with Shelby and we can go out as friends, great ride. We both got the same thing, roll it off and go. So
We can holler at each other while we're driving.
that's true, yeah. You can actually have a conversation while you're riding. So
yeah, basically, I mean, this thing would look great by itself in the garage, or add it to the lineup next to your gas bike, your 4-stroke, and your 2-stroke. Whatever is your mix, they all do an exceptional job.
That's right. Cool, well, we got it unboxed. Let's go ahead and just take a look at it, some of the details here of how it's packaged, and then we'll get into really unboxing more.
All right, so Stark, when it comes, they give you a lot of these cool tie straps that we'll remove. You can reuse them or save them for other stuff too, which I did. So we'll go ahead and break this thing down, take off some of the neoprene plastic stuff, and start taking out the boxes and some of the components that we will be assembling. And one of the coolest parts that we'll tell you about in a little bit is what they send you with the bike, which is a game changer.
All right, guys, so we got it unpackaged. Shelby's gonna go through. He's gonna kind of tell us each part that we got off.
Yeah, as we get everything opened up and set up before we assemble, just a couple quick things to note. Obviously, it comes with the wheel, the rotors, and the rear wheel's already installed. Rotors are all on, everything's there. We've got the charging box, which has some of the setups to ensure that we can connect and plug in, which are pretty easy to use and a great compact storage setup. And then we've got the stand here that we'll be assembling so that we can put the bike on the stand. We get the controls set up, the handlebars, some of the couplers, and then your on-off and throttle setup already set up too. And then of course front fender. And then one of the coolest parts of what Stark provides with the bike is sitting in this box right here. So we'll go ahead and open this and show you what's inside. All right, so of course to assemble the bike we need some tools, and Stark does not disappoint. Comes with a full box with inlays, custom woodwork for each tool and component that we'll need to put this bike together and to maintain the bike. So we've got torque wrenches, got box end socket wrenches, got little socket sets and Torx bits and all sorts of things. So with this kit, we'll be able to assemble the bike completely, which is really cool. I wish more manufacturers would get on board with this. And easy to pack up and take with you to the track.
That's right. I guess a quick question. Yeah. Does this come with instructions just in case?
So yes, Stark does have a pretty extensive video setup on how to assemble the bike, as well as some tips and such on their website and a QR code. But we can go ahead and we'll put this together as logically as possible in the ways that we found to be the easiest and simplest way to do it.
Okay, well, we've done it twice before, so hopefully we got it dialed. Third time's the charm, we got it dialed. All right, so we missed one thing. We actually just found this little box that we overlooked. It is the interface, which is basically, it's an iPhone, but Shelby.
So yeah, this will actually end up being the whole dashboard for the bike that will sit right on the handlebars above the triple clamps. And this is where you tune your horsepower, your torque settings. It'll show you how much airtime you've had. It'll do the geo mapping of your laps and everything. It's really cool. So it's a full Android, basically a full Android phone on your bike. You can get emails, notifications and such, or even put a SIM card in and have connected Wi-Fi the whole time. So yeah, drops in and we'll show you how this goes into the bike in a moment.
Can you download other apps on that?
Yeah, it's a full functioning Android device. So just like your phone in your pocket, you can have your Instagram, Facebook, or games, or whatever you have on there.
So when you're riding, I know you said you use headphones, right? When you're riding, so you're putting in Spotify or some kind of...
Yeah, so you can stream off this as long as you have like a SIM card or connectivity or Wi-Fi. So that's something to be aware of as you have your bike set up. One thing to be mindful of is before I go out, I turn the bike on and the dashboard while I'm connected to Wi-Fi or internet, and that way I can get it to connect to the bike and pair smoothly. Because say you go and set up off-grid somewhere and you haven't set the bike up and connected it that day, you might have issues with interacting with the interface. The bike will still work fine, but you want to see your data and what horsepower and settings you're doing in real time.
Nice, good enough.
All right, one thing to be mindful of is that the hardware that we need for some parts to install are going to be in the charging unit itself. So you want to make sure that you get those. Got your foot pegs, a couple bolts, and some spacers for your front wheel. All right, so as we put the stand together, let's be conscious of the notation on the stand that notes that this is the front with the little lip. And the reason we want to do that is because the box, as we mount the charging system in the stand, the charging port is on the left-hand side of the bike here. So we want that distance to be as short as possible. So we want to make sure that our panel is opening on the correct side.
Yep, which there's arrows right there and it actually labels which way is the front on this. So it makes it pretty easy.
So easiest way to install this, we'll lay this on its side. And then let's see.
Flipping back, yep. Yep.
Got it, coming in.
Okay.
And then just slowly get these on. So in the toolkit, they give you a a large torque wrench and a small one, but I've always thrown just a standard non-torque spec wrench in my toolbox as well, just for the little stuff like this where you don't need a big old bulky torque wrench. They've got some great manufacturing design in place. They did a ton of R&D, which they talked about at length as they were making the bike, and it shows for sure. Their quality of components is very impressive. And something too to note is that if you have any issues with the Stark, their customer service is amazing. They've been always overly responsive. Within a day or so, they get back to you, and they've overnighted or shipped me out anything that was damaged or had issues or concerns with instantly.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Another thing that other manufacturers could take note on.
Yeah. Well, I actually heard, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard like the replacement parts for the Stark are actually fairly inexpensive to get, right?
So like, you know, a rear wheel is it looks like it's about 20-30% less than market rate, and it comes assembled, ready to go with a tire on it.
Yeah, which is crazy. So take note of that. It's good to know. A little bonus when buying a Stark. Okay, these are all pretty tight. Probably don't want to over tighten because it just seems like aluminum on aluminum, but
one thing you could do too from Stark is order an additional charger unit and have one unattached from the stand. So I have one in the garage that's on the stand, so I charge it. And then I have one that's portable, just this piece, so that I can plug it into a generator or at the track without having to tote around the heavy.
Got it, I've seen you do that. So in the back of your truck, Shelby shows up at the track, he's got a little generator with just this piece, which is sitting right next to it. So now that we got that out, next step is gonna be trying to disassemble this from, or disconnect it, I should say, from the pallet.
So the hardest part that I've encountered in the past in doing so, and I'm maybe doing this inefficiently, but getting the axle out from this locking block up here has been the most difficult part, just because the axle doesn't freely move without a little bit of force. So we'll see if we can knock this one out pretty easy. And
Okay.
So this is something that Stark, maybe they could do it a little better, because when we unweight one side of the axle, all of the weight on the left stanchion forces torque onto the axle into the chock. Improvising. Oh.
Come on, Stark, take it up.
All right. Okay, now what we're gonna do is you're gonna pick up the front of the bike, the stanchions, and I'll pick up the back and we'll set it onto the stand, okay?
That's really annoying that that's how that is. I think if they're gonna fix something, they need to figure out a different way to attach the front axle to this, to at least transport it, right?
And they have digital directions or instructions as well, but it would be nice to have a little directive for some of the main components of disassembly, because a lot of people will probably just try to tackle this themselves, but it's nice to have, like, how do you get that out of there in the most effective way?
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure yet.
Chiseling it out of the wood seemed to work really nicely, so.
Now the bike is very heavy, so again, having someone with you or multiple people is really helpful.
Yep.
You got it? Come my way a little bit more. There we go. A little set back here. Yeah, we're good. Now we can move this.
What's next? We're putting the front tire on?
Let's go ahead and throw the front wheel on.
Okay.
Just like a standard dirt bike. Be able to pull this thing.
Black.
Tighten the lock nuts, the pinch bolts, so that we can loosen the cap off the axle. They've got a little bit of a spacer for the front brake pads. Keep those separated. If you need to, you can take a flathead screwdriver and push those pistons back to recess them more. Make it a little easier, but should have enough room on there. Before we put the axle through, we're gonna need the wheel spacers in, of course. They pop right in. They are identical on the front wheel, so it doesn't matter which side. All right, so once we get the axle seated, then we can take a rubber mallet, kind of tap her through until we're through the other side, and we can put that axle cap back on, tighten her up. All right, so when we tighten the front axle nut, we wanna get it snug. It's gonna spin in the axle. What we're gonna do is we're gonna tighten the axle cap side, and we'll revisit this later to tighten up the front end once we get the handlebars and the front brake on, because what we're gonna wanna do is, as the right side's pinch bolts are loose, we'll go ahead and let the wheel settle on the axle where it should, so that we don't bind up that suspension travel in any way. So we'll revisit that in a moment as we get the controls set up and the front brake mounted. All right, so next we'll put the handlebars on that they've included. What we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the 4 triple clamp bolts here so that we can remove the cockpit mount, and that way we can take out these travel tubes and put our bars in place, and then I'll show you basically how we're gonna hook up these couplers so that everything electric works.
There you go.
Now these come just finger tight initially, so not too much work in getting these backed out. And this is where having just that standard socket set's just nice for these little jobs in between, even though they do include everything you need there. Having that big torque wrench is a little laborsome to be working on these general swap outs. There we go. So put this somewhere safe. Toss this guy. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to hook up these couplers to basically, I guess, the computer or the control module on the bike, which is located in underneath the triple clamp, the top part. So it's a lot easier for us to take off the number plate so that we can do this and get good vision into connecting these all correctly. We'll remove this so we can get a little better picture here. And as we do so, I'll show you guys. Let's go ahead and hang this over maybe the seat. So the couplers will plug into here, and so taking this off is going to be make it a lot easier to connect those, get good visibility as to where those ports are going into. And surprisingly, after almost 60 hours and a ton of pressure washing with no regard, I have had no issues with water intrusion or anything like that. If you guys have seen Instagram, they've ridden these bikes literally through completely submerged underwater. So they are watertight as advertised, which is pretty cool.
So when you're pressure washing this, are you just disregarding this, or are you trying to avoid it as best as possible?
I mean, I'm not pointing the nozzle directly down into here, but
yeah, if water hits it and like if you're blasting past it,
I haven't even considered it. Yeah, and like I said, they've literally been fully submerged, control panel and everything, yeah. And they still operate. It's wild. This last piece on this side is always a little bit difficult to unhook, so just got to play with it a little bit.
I guess it's nice too, because you do have a front access to this, so that once this is all assembled, if you think you got some water in there, you could always take this off, right? Go back in.
Correct.
Yeah, from the front.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna float the bars onto the triple clamps while pushing these down underneath. And
So is there any tips on this? Do you want the wire in front or behind?
In front of the bar clamps. Okay. Yeah. Now there's 2 couplers here. Where's the third? Let's see. Nothing. Is it this way? Yes. Cool. Good eye. All right. So it's not rocket science as to which one goes into which port, but it's easier to take them out. They're only going to fit into one each. So make sure that you connect the right one. That one does not fit into that one. So boom, that one sits. And then as we put that into place, you want to mount it back in. This one, so it comes over here. There's a little blue silicone gasket at the base of these, so just be mindful that if that isn't fitting completely snug, you might have to adjust that with the toothpick or something. And then we've got the last one that will come from the controls. So we're gonna fish this thing through here as well as Brian floats it down.
Again, I think this is just way easier with a second person.
Yeah, doing this
just by yourself, it's gonna be a challenge, probably take you way longer.
Yeah, I have my original install video on my channel. It was before they had any substantial directions. And I did it all by myself, so just highly don't recommend.
Yeah.
All right, there's the last coupler. Push that back into place. Boom. And like I said, everything's pretty intuitive. These are only gonna clip into the correct components. And then when they seat back into this panel, they pop right in where they should. There's only one portion of the bracket that mounts that way. So once we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and put this face back on. If you want to, you can start finger tightening these down.
Yeah, I was trying, it's just hard getting out with a finger.
And Stark includes everything, the adapters from 1/2 inch down and all the little fitment pieces, so you can swap these things in and out pretty quickly. Now the breastplate of the control unit just pops back into place. You'll hear it, it's got a real positive clip-in position, so you'll know that it's seated the way it should be. Something to note is that there are torque specs for each of these bolts and every component that we assemble, so always reference the Stark manual, or we may include those in the description below, or a link to them so that you can reference them quickly. But feel free to check those specs and torque these according to their recommendations. All right, so as Brian's looking up some of the specs for torque numbers on the items we're touching, I'm gonna just set up and loosely mount the front brakes so that we can put the number plate back on and fully mount the bars to their recommended specifications. Comes with Brembo brakes, which are the best, in my opinion, available. This bike is turnkey, ready to go. You don't need to go and build the motor or enhance components. I mean, you can take this thing out of the box and go to town and go to race day just fine, in my opinion. Obviously, getting some valving or suspension work done for your preference would be an option, of course, but it does come with the KYB suspension stock, which in my opinion, again, is the best stuff available from an OE supplier. Something to note as well is that Stark, since we don't have a clutch, you can actually opt in for a rear brake hand setup on the left-hand side for a lever, or a traditional rear brake pedal like every dirt bike has. And I ordered mine with the handbrake initially. For me personally, after a couple months of riding it like that, the only reason I went back to the traditional setup, being my age and how many years I've been on the bike, is that in those slight moments of maybe a slight unannounced turn or option, instead of crashing, I'd rather have my foot on the brake pedal.
Sure.
So I had a couple close calls and I'm just not quite ready to adapt fully. So I went with the brake pedal after trying the handbrake, but I know a lot of people love the handbrake.
Yeah, so the stock version actually comes with the handbrake, and then I think it's maybe a couple $100 or something to add the rear brake. We did talk to the guys at Recluse, and Recluse, I don't know exactly, but from what it sounded like on the initial calls, they actually have, if you were to purchase it with a back brake, which they said you'd have to do, they have a handbrake assembly that you can run both. So you can have your foot brake and also a handbrake option, and it could do both to just get warmed up and ready to where, you know, you have your foot in case you need it in those like, oh, you know what movements, and then, or you have the handbrake to just practice and get used to that. Because I think there, like you said, there's a lot of guys out there that are using the handbrake that have gotten used to that, and you know, keeping your feet in the position that they're supposed to be in at all times. You don't got to move your foot. It'll help you to hopefully turn faster laps. So, but yes, in our case, we're really used to using a back brake, so we're opting to just run that for now, and then hopefully Recluse, we can talk to them more and get that thing set up. So more to come on that.
All right, so Brian's been looking on their online manual for the specs, and this was something I ran into upon initial assembly as well, is that it turns out I grew up on paper manuals, but scanning through your phone to find out torque specs and things where you can't really highlight them like I used to and have like a tab or something, just makes it a little more difficult. They are all there, but it might take a little bit more time. That's why we're going to try to provide them to you guys so that you don't have to check your manual upon assembly.
Yeah, so if you are looking on their site, it looks like when you go to the assembly portion of the manual, there's a little hyperlink in there that you click and it says torque setting table. In this manual that I'm looking at, it's in section 5.4.2, and it looks like page 72 of 162. You're gonna find, it starts there and it gives you all of the torque settings. So if you guys need to know where it is, that's where it is. It's right on their website. Another thing to note that I just saw here, there is a QR code on the side of the bike. If you scan it, it just gives you your VIN number of the bike.
It'd be cool if that came directly to the manual, I think, too.
That would be cool. They could probably add another QR code next to it just to click, scan, and go straight to the manual to pull up. It's also really easy to find on their site. I just typed in Stark Varg owner's manual, pulls right up. There you go. Yeah, so one thing to note, like we have all of the torque setting in this chart. The only thing we're not seeing is the triple clamp setting. It's not in here, unless they're calling it something different.
Or it's buried in the PDF, which is, like I said, scanning through takes forever. So
162-page PDF.
Let's include them maybe in the description. So if they click down on the description of the video, they can see that.
Yep. All right, so I think what they're calling it, instead of the bar mounts, is they're calling it the docking station mounts, and they're putting it at 30 Newton meters. So when you do a quick Google search, it also comes up with that same. So it says the handlebar mounts are at 30. So that's what we're setting it to.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, so now that we got that assembled, we are going to throw this front fender on, then we'll go through, we'll torque it all up, and we should be getting really close.
Yep. Then we'll have the phone sync up and connect to the bike via Bluetooth and start setting up your profile.
Cool stuff. Okay.
You want to grab the fender and we'll start floating it in when these are all off. Looks so good after a full year.
He's not eating graphics, right?
No, they're sublimated.
Yeah.
Even my old plastics, like I took them off. I got new ones, but they're still in good shape. Like they didn't break, no crack, no tear, nothing. Yeah, the fit and finish on these, it's undeniably good.
Yeah. It's a pretty little bike. Yeah, there you go.
All right.
One thing to note while Shelby's doing this, these bikes have the option for 3 different springs. There is a soft, medium, and hard. I weigh probably 205 pounds or something with my gear on, so I actually opted for the harder spring. We talked to a few people. Weston Pike at RG3, he highly recommended just going towards the heavier spring, especially if you're kind of in that range where you're the high end of the medium and then the low end of the hard. Shelby, I think you said you got the soft, right? You were soft or medium?
I went medium. So when I ordered my bike, they did it by weight. So I punched in my weight and they just gave me a spring rate for that. Now they've changed it a little bit to accommodate the 3 levels.
Okay.
And when I did get mine, I put mine in at 165 when I was weighing 155, and it was sprung a little soft still, just because the bike is a little heavier than a traditional gas bike. So, and I like my stuff a little firmer. So, you know, it's a preference point, but I think getting a good baseline, like what you're saying, is a great starting point.
Yeah, and you've already done a revalve, right?
Yeah, I had our G3 with Weston do front and rear, and you know, just even enhance the KYB stuff that's already.
So did you increased your spring rate in the back already too?
Yes.
And you're still bottoming out at times.
I'm getting a bottom on heavy landings or jump faces that are really peaky while I'm coming in with a lot of speed. So my compression needs to either increase or I need to go up another spring rate and then dial things back.
Yeah.
From my understanding, but I'll leave that to Weston.
Sure.
So just keep note of that, because there is some stuff you may want to just, when it comes to the spring, I would err on the side of just getting a heavier one and then maybe get a revalve and then start tweaking your compression and things from there. So
Looks like a bike.
it does look like a bike. It's looking good.
Snappy.
It is snappy.
All right, so what we're gonna do here is we're going to rotate the front wheel, pull that front brake in, and this is gonna allow the right extension or pinch bolt area to align on the axle where it naturally should, so that we don't get a toe in on the front forks. And then if you wanna go a little extra further, you can kind of rock the bike and get a little bit of suspension movement to help ensure it's settled as best as possible.
So let's see.
So let's see the torque on the pinch bolts.
Front wheel axle lock bolt is going to be 35 Newton meters. The clamp bolts are 15.
Up. And then just one more time. So the axle itself will be 35 Newton meters and the pinch bolts are 15.
35 and 15.
All right. It says we're good.
That.
So what do you recommend? Do you recommend going through the whole bike and checking the torque anyway? All the rest of the stuff?
It's supposed to come pre-torqued, but it's always a good rule of thumb just to go through everything and check all the main things, especially triple clamps, rear axle, rear brake mounts. Let's see, all your controls, and then maybe some of the frame and subframe bolts. But for the most part, I haven't had any issues on mine, neither has my brother. And so hopefully it's the case for you guys too.
Okay. Want to do rear? We're good.
No, it came.
So it's better to be safe than sorry. We're going to probably go back through this anyway. We will check the torque on everything. We'll do that at a later time, so you don't have to watch us.
So let's go ahead and get the Android device out.
Okay.
And pair this thing up. So actually, let's see. I'll let you go ahead and do the honors. So everything that comes in here, you've got your charging cord, you've got your, what is this, the Vodafone SIM card that's, I guess, is already in it.
Yeah, it looks. I think
They've already put it in for you, but in the removing clip. So
Okay. So just power it up on the side.
Good.
very sleek design, packaging, huh?
It's really nice.
This is our first time connecting to the bike, so you'll see in real time what the process consists of, but it should communicate back and forth, and we'll see if we need to turn it on. I don't recall exactly. We'll have to double check. So, okay, what do you got?
System UI has stopped.
Close app,
Okay.
and then basically set up your Gmail. I did mine through my Gmail account, and then you want to connect to your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so it's basically asking us to connect to the Wi-Fi, get this connected, and then we can start going from there.
Can I do that again?
Okay.
So yeah, once you power it up, you basically hit the prompt, it's gonna come through and it's gonna say get started, and then now you wanna get in, connect to Wi-Fi, and you can begin setting up your account. Okay, so once you connect to Wi-Fi, it just says it's getting the phone ready. It's gonna take a few minutes. So while this is loading up, we're gonna leave this here. We're gonna go back and we're gonna just throw on the pegs right now, and then we'll come back to this to finish setting it up.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, so the foot pegs that they include are exceptional. These are awesome foot pegs. I'm a huge fan of having nice foot pegs on my bikes. I've typically gone with like the full wider tie pegs that are offered in the market, but these I've had no reason to explore other options yet. And so installing these, again, it's always easier with someone else helping you. So let's go through the process here and put these puppies on. Back that out. And then they're pretty obvious which one goes where. Now, you're gonna have to apply some pressure on the peg to be able to have it align. All right, then we hit threads, so be careful. And now we'll start trying to catch.
Are you now there?
Nope, it's just rotating. You gotta push really hard. All right, so be careful.
Peg it again.
So what we've seen in the past, when I've done this a few times now, is that one of the threads on mine, it's really hard to get the threads to seat properly without potentially stripping them. I didn't strip mine, thank goodness, but it was really close. My brother's bike, when we put his together, was also very difficult to get the thread to catch. You can tell there's not really like can't really feel where it's.
Yeah, yeah. So I just
gotta
don't know if you
finagle.
have to tap it a little bit more just to get it a little
Seated.
bit closer, but
Yeah, it came in a little bit more, so keep going.
it looks like it's there. It is. You could feel it. So tap it right till it gets to that edge, because you can feel it as you're tapping it. It'll stop, and then slowly turn as he's moving it, and then it hooks up. But I can see how you could strip that really easily, especially if you're trying to force it or jam it in there. So what's the torque on these?
Confirm.
Yeah.
You have the manual still pulled up? All right, we'll do the same on the other side, then we'll torque these things up. All right. There you go. I think you're seated.
20.
As Brian mentioned, we're 20 Newton meters on foot pegs. There you go. Now these things shed mud and debris super well, easy to clean, and they tuck up real nice as well. So when you're running, a muddy, rutted track, awesome foot pegs to have.
Okay, so moving back to the app setup, the first prompt that it gives us is, do you want to copy your apps and data? I'm going to say no, I don't need that because I don't use that for my Google. I don't need it all transferring here. And now it's just going to go through checking your info, another setup phase it looks like. Okay, and then it's just giving me my Google login. So I guess the question is going to be, what if you don't have a Google login? You're going to have to make one.
Create one.
Okay, so there you go. If you don't have a Google login, you're going to have to set one up. Luckily for me, I do. I just sync it to my personal Google account.
And that's something to note while Brian's setting up his account and authenticating, is that, like I mentioned earlier, if you're not in an area with Wi-Fi connectivity, the bike will work and the dashboard will work, but you won't be able to log into your user profile if you're not connected to Wi-Fi or an internet. So that's where that issue, and some people have spoken about that online, is if you go out to the track, you haven't turned your bike on and connected it that day, you want to be mindful of that. Connect it before you leave the house, and then you can turn the bike back off and it'll stay connected as it's mounted in the mount here. Otherwise, you may have to use somebody's hotspot or just get a SIM card so you don't have to worry about that. The phone I guess my understanding is it looks like it charges while it's mounted into the bike. And I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but I believe it is, because every time I have a low charge on my Android device and I go ride, it comes back fully charged. So obviously it's got to have a charging mechanism in here. It's not hardwired in or anything. It literally mounts in here, and we'll show you guys how it seats. But yeah, I believe it charges while you ride, and I haven't had to actually plug mine in ever, so pretty cool setup in that regard.
So here's a question that is prompting me is, do you want to add the phone number from this device to your Google account? Yes, or skip it. So I'm gonna opt to skip it. I don't think I need it. It's not something that I would call from or do anything like that. Okay, agree to the terms of service, continue through.
And I think in the future too, it'd be good if Stark offered an option with a hard mounted interface. For me, I don't have any utility in being able to take the phone out and use it, nor do I use it for anything except for riding. If I'm going anywhere, I have my phone with me. So it's a really cool idea and concept. But for me, I wish they'd have just a hard mount docking setup where I wouldn't have to worry about an Android device.
Do you think part of that is just because of the washing? They want this to be able to remove because this is sort of your computer. Take it out, wash your bike, put it back.
Possibly, but I know they do it on street bikes, so it'd be cool as just another option to explore. And also the phone can get really hot and, I want to be able to see the screen all the time.
Sure. Okay, so really the next step was just set up a PIN. Once you get logged into your account, you're just setting up a PIN, and then now it's saying unlock with fingerprint. You could say next if you want. Do you do that? Do you have a fingerprint?
No, because I have my glove on most of the time.
That's true. Yeah. I'm gonna skip it. If I need to, I can come.
I just have a four-digit passcode for mine. So you just imagine while you're connecting to your bike in the morning, you won't have to do all of this. You'll literally turn the phone on, put your passcode in, open up the Stark app, and it will connect to the bike itself when it's in proximity. So all in all, it takes about maybe 15, 20 seconds for the most part.
Okay, so as I'm going through this, it looks like it's just giving you a bunch of prompts
From Google.
Yeah, from Google to just set up like voice, activate with Google Voice, pay, some other things like that. I just kind of went through it and skipped them all since we're not really using this phone as it thinks we might. Once you get past that, it just loaded up the, opening screen, so we're gonna see where to go from here.
And now you should be able to see the Stark app somewhere in there. So let's see if we can see where it's at.
There you go. So as you swipe up, you're gonna get all these apps, and they basically have loaded the Stark app right in here. So we'll go ahead and we will select that, and then it will load up. So I guess once you're into this app, this is all we're gonna be using.
Yep, and if you look at the back of the Android device, it's a branded Stark Android, so they do have that preloaded up, so you don't have to go and download it from the cloud or whatnot.
So here's another thing, there needs to be an update run on this app, so we're gonna go ahead and click the update. That's another reason why you will want to set this up. You need to get your Wi-Fi set up. Don't do this where you don't have Wi-Fi.
And we've had feature updates released through updates over the air. So as Stark increases battery range or battery production or power delivery options and new tunes, like those things will be downloadable over the air, which is really cool. You'll be prompted with those updates, just like your car these days.
Yeah. So do you want to allow the Varg to access this device location while using the app, or always?
I say while using the app, just because when I'm doing a GPS map of where I'm riding, it'll show me a layover.
Allow Stark to access your photos and media.
I haven't had a desire to do that, but that's up to you.
There's not going to be much photos and media on here, so I don't know what the difference is. I'll just say deny. Bluetooth is disabled right now. You likely will want to enable that.
So will it tell us how to enable on the bike?
We're going to find out here. So once you click that, it's going to say pair a new device. There's two options. The other one is connection preferences. So we're going to go ahead and pair a new device. It's gonna pull up available devices.
I'm gonna go ahead and press the power button here, and let's just see.
So it's powered on, and then we will look to see if that bike pops up on here.
Varg.
There it is, right at the bottom. So then it says pair with Varg. It needs your PIN.
All right, so the PIN number, we do need the PIN.
The PIN, is it on that box right there? Potentially, this came with?
This is a part in the process when I originally put my bike together where I was hoping that it'd be a little more obvious where the pin was. I remember we had to do a little digging to figure out where it was exactly. And the same goes with where we're at today. So.
Okay, so one thing to note on that, so as we pulled it up, it said connect Bluetooth. And so what we did is we turned the bike on trying to connect the Bluetooth. It looks like the way to do this is you're gonna wanna log in to the app. So close out that prompt for Bluetooth, because that's just looks like the phone prompt for Bluetooth. Skip it, set up in the app, set up or log into your account, and then it pulls up connect a bike.
And which login did you use?
So I just use the login. It says use your same email and password that you used to purchase the bike from the website. If you didn't have that, I purchased it through that. I didn't go through a dealer. I went straight to the website. It sounds like if you don't have that, just set up a login or something through their website or the app and you're good to go. But now that you're in here, it's showing the bike. It has the numbers to it and looks like you just click it because it says one bike available.
Something to note when you guys are riding the bike, when it's flashing green, that means that it's in neutral. So that way if you hit the throttle by accident, she ain't gonna take out from underneath you. All right, so when we have the bike blinking in red here, that means that we're in standby mode. To turn it off, you wanna press both these buttons at the same time. Let's go ahead and mount it into this. So to put this in, we just go like this, put the front end, clicks right in. And we'll try connecting straight from the dashboard in case it just needs to be connected to the bike.
Boom, connected.
Like that. Cool.
Yeah, so it looks like when we originally had it in our hand, we were holding it, it had a difficult time connecting. Once we put it in here, we backed out of the app and went back into it, connected in a second. So if you're having the same issues that we just had trying to connect, I'd recommend just back out of the app, put it in this, should be good to go.
And then here's your dashboard. You got your stats, so how long you've been riding it, how much air time, pretty cool speeds and stuff. Here's your modes, probably the most fun part of the dash, so you can set your power outputs.
So how many, can't you have separate profiles for each mode?
So there's 5. So we can go ahead and you can click modes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that way, if you're on the trails, like for instance, for me, I really only use like 2 different modes. I have like a trail riding mode and then I have a track mode. In my trail mode, I run like 40, 45 horsepower and full regen, so 100%. So I maintain the most battery. And then on the track, I run personally about 56 horsepower and about 50% or 40% regen to have it more free flowing. And that seems to be a sweet spot for me at least.
Okay.
So I use 1 and 2, but you can dial it in or out, increments of 5 horsepower or a blend to give it a 2-stroke feel with 0 regen. It's really cool how you can optimize that, and you can do that on the fly. So say you're in the air on a triple, you can change the maps with these buttons up or down, switching your map selections, which is really awesome. All right, so here's on our main screen on the dashboard, you've got your stats set up where you can see how much air time you've had, how many miles you've gone, your time and hours on the bike, max speed. It's really cool, and it'll show you maps as well to see kind of where you've been riding. And then the best part here is modes. Where we get into modes, you've got 5 preset modes that you can select, and you can change your horsepower, your regenerative braking or regen, which acts almost like compression braking on the bike. And so, my preference is about 56 horsepower on the track with about 40% in regen. And on the trails, I run about 45 horsepower and 100% regen to maintain battery. So on the fly, you can change these maps, save them while you're riding at the track, and say you want to go ahead and check your maps. You simply press the down or up button on these, and that'll select your map mode. So right now we're on map 5, and if we go down, we'll select map 4, 3, 2, and 1. You've also got a daytime or a night mode setting, depending on where and how light it is where you're riding. And then note too that as this green code button is solid green, that means that we're live. That means that we've got power to the wheel.
Good.
So as we go ahead and let that go back to flashing green, you're back in neutral, which is a safe zone, so you can hand the bike over or not worry about the throttle touch. And now as we go back to the home screen, We've also got support, so you can actually contact support here as you're connected to internet. And then your parts here. So you've actually got your manual and all your parts on your bike that you can order directly from the bike and the dashboard, which is kind of cool. So if you break something on the track, you can go ahead and look it up and order it in real time if you have connectivity. Outside of that, you can set up your personal profile and put in all your information and whatnot and have this all personalized for your preference. And you can remove and take out the phone at any point. The bike will still operate just like it should without the app in there or the dashboard, and you can reconnect it at any point in time. So to turn it off, we'll hold the power button down and it'll let you know your Varg is now in standby mode. And then when I set my bike in the garage, I've always been conscious to turn off the phone, which is the power button on the top right side, and I just turn off the component altogether so that the battery doesn't die on the phone while it's sitting in the garage. So.
All right, guys, so there you have it. Overall, it probably took us a little bit over an hour to put the whole thing together, unbox it, do the whole assembly. Not too bad, pretty easy. Any other, moving into like riding and some other general maintenance, is there anything else you want to talk to about the bike?
Yeah, so outside of, there's a break-in there's oil in the motor to help, I believe, cool the engine or motor. And there's 5 milliliters of oil that you'll change after your first, I think it's 5 hours of riding or something like that, but definitely reflect on the manual just to make sure, but it's a real easy setup. And then from there, it's every 40, 50 hours or so, you change that 5 milliliters of oil. And then something that's really cool about these bikes that you wouldn't anticipate is the chain and sprocket setup for the drivetrain. I don't know exactly why, I'm assuming because of the electric motor and there's no clutch and engagement with the motor like there is on a gas bike, but I was expecting for my chain to stretch within the first ride or at least the first 10 rides. And I've got over 55 hours on my bike now, and I've never once had to either tighten the chain or adjust it in any way, shape, or form. And my sprocket and drivetrain system is still intact to where I didn't even have to change it out when I got new wheel set. So that's pretty amazing. Usually that's $300-400 of parts every 15-20 hours that you don't have to do on the Stark, which is awesome. Outside of that, keep your tires fresh, your brake pads, and
it's pretty low maintenance.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, now that we got it set up, Shelby's gonna show us, we need to talk about charging this. So go ahead, show us how we're going to hook that up and any other tips with charging.
So like we mentioned earlier, they include everything we need. It's gonna be right down in here. So everything's set up inside this box. And what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna set up the connection point on the backside so that we can run this to an outlet for charging. And you can do 110 or 220, and they give you the adapter as necessary, depending on what type of hookup you have in the house. And then once you guys get that connection on the backside done, I'll show you where we just basically connect into the port here, and the bike will be set up to charge. Easy as that. All right, so Brian, as we look over here, this is where the connection point's gonna come out of.
Sorry, over here.
We're just gonna wanna get a hold of this. Gotta finagle it a little bit, but there's your extension cord. And if you've got, the big boy here, or just your traditional charging setup for 110, comes with the adapter. And if you want, we can pull this out. It actually got quite a bit of run in here. So we want to make sure we're getting it all. It's a little tangled up. Pull that through.
Should all pull out.
There we go. So there you go. We can plug her in and good to go.
Perfect.
Make sure that before you ride, you put the cap back on. That's very common for people on the Starks to forget, including myself. You'll go out, you'll hear something dangling on your boot and look down and you forgot to put the port cover back on. So all in all, super easy to do. When you go to the track, you can plug that into a generator, or you can remove this component, use a traditional stand like I do, and just bring this with you. And that way you can hook it up anywhere, and a lot easier to get around in the garage, because this stand is a little bit heavier than, quite a bit heavier. So throwing that in the back of the truck's harder. So I like having it out of there, and that way you can move it around, put it on a normal stand.
So do you recommend getting the generator and doing it that way, or do you think you can get by just on one charge at a track?
I love having the option to have it charged. There's probably, out of 10 rides, I'll probably use the generator, maybe 3 or 4 of those. So on those days, I'm definitely glad if I'm feeling a little bit of extra energy and I'm not wiped out. But a lot of times the bike will outlast me too. So just depends what type of riding you're doing and where you're at with your physicality.
Well, awesome. Hey, thank you so much, Shelby, for taking the time to help us put this together and give our viewers a lot of good insight into the Stark Varg. Guys, we're really excited for just more videos this year, getting out, actually testing and riding this bike, washing this bike, doing a lot of other fun stuff with it. We will be posting more videos for you. Guys, please give Shelby a follow. It's Shelby Paget. You're gonna find him on YouTube and Instagram. He's got a really cool retro looking Stark. Definitely go check it out. We just saw that release the other day, so super cool bike. But yeah, thank you so much for helping us. Stay tuned for more on this Stark. Make sure to give Slick Products like, follow, subscribe to our channels. We will have a lot of cool videos coming out this year. Stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching.